Road 96 looked like something that I might enjoy, but my expectations were set really low since it had that strong indie game aura surrounding it. Objectively, it's extremely hard for an independent title to impress me nowadays, simply because I've become spoiled by all the AAA perks such as professional voice acting and amazing graphics. Some might consider this to be cynical of me, but I'm just being honest. There is a positive side to all of this, however, since my expectations are minimal and therefore it is much easier to impress me if the game is done well. And this is where Road 96 comes in. In short, this game is good, really good. But stay a bit longer and I'd be happy to elaborate. The narrative takes place in a fictional country in which a dictator has been ruling for far too long. An election is coming up and there is another candidate who is supposed to bring the desired change. A third option exists as well. There's a resistance movement which is opposing the government and wishes to bring about change. As the game starts, we find ourselves in control of a nameless teenager who is on her way to the border. We're not a freedom fighter or a hero in any meaningful way. We just want to escape into a neighboring country hoping for a better life, or at least our protagonist does. At first, I was immediately annoyed by the fact that our character is not voice acted. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you will probably know that I have no tolerance for silent protagonists. I like my characters with an actual character, and not as simple puppets who move around but never express emotions. So for me, this was a red flag, especially since it happened in a game which appears to put a heavy emphasis on its story. As I played on, I came to realize that every other character was voice acted, and pretty well at that as a matter of fact, with some of them delivering a fantastic vocal performance. I'm thinking of my favorite character, the sexy reporter. As we progress with the narrative, we meet more of the cast and uncover some of their secrets as well as their motivations on our way to the border. We have to make sure to keep our energy reserves high for the trip ahead. This is achieved by sleeping and consuming food and beverages. How we get these is mostly up to us, but the game provides us with a plethora of options. The easiest ways are through exploration or by simply purchasing them. The second option being obviously much easier, but bringing the question of money into the game. And that, my friends, adds yet another layer of problems, since many of the ways to get money can get us in trouble. In short, while the gameplay is quite simple, it is designed in a very smart way, giving us the feeling of complexity. In addition to these more basic problems, we have to also make important decisions which can not only lead to our character's death, but also decide the fate of the whole country. With that in mind, we push on and at some point reach the border, where we have to pick one of the multiple possible paths to cross it. I was careful and managed to do so fairly easily. Then I took a look at my watch and realized that I had only been playing for around 45 minutes. Yet, I was watching an ending cinematic, which was very strange. This is also when it became clear to me that we don't simply get to cross the border with one teenager. We actually get to control many different ones before reaching the actual ending of the game. This made a lot more sense and explained why our character was not voiced in the first place, and why none of the other ones are either. With each consecutive journey, we learn more about the actual plot and influence the story bit by bit in the direction of our choice. This is also where I would like to address some of the game's technical strengths and weaknesses. First of all, it supports both 32:9 and 21:9 natively, which is great. The graphics are, in my opinion, quite primitive, but still manage to look nice once your eyes get used to them. Where the game scores massively is its soundtrack. Since it's all supposed to take place in the 90s, we get to enjoy some absolutely awesome synthwave. Also, every song is a winner here and adds so much to the game's presentation. The levels are all divided into sections. We're shown the distance to the border during the loading screens, then something happens and we need to control our character on a relatively small map, and then we move on. At first, the way the game progressed reminded me of a Telltale game, but Road 96 manages to do a much better job in pretty much every aspect than Telltale's games ever did. First of all, it constantly throws in various minigames which break up the monotony while simultaneously offering us another source of money, although you can end up losing money too if you're not careful. The second major improvement reveals itself in the form of story progression. This is achieved by giving the player an option on how they wish to travel after each stop. You could take the bus if you have money for a ticket, you could call a cab, hitchhike, or even walk. All of these options have pros and cons. Some are faster and will offer us a chance to rest, but cost money, while others are cost effective but end up wasting a lot of energy, for example. At the end of the day, the player gets to choose and live with the consequences of that choice. What makes this decision all the more important is the fact that each encounter is randomized based on it, meaning that you play through the whole game and effectively will miss many encounters. The advantage of that is obviously replayability. If you have ever played a Telltale game, you will probably know that replaying them is pretty much pointless. They are extremely linear and they don't really give you any freedom when it comes to your choices. Yes, from time to time you will get to decide something which may even decide the fate of a character, meaning that your decision could save or kill them. But even if you make a choice which saves a character, the game will only kill him or her a few minutes later, since it has a set story which it will follow regardless of what you want. Road 96 is not like that. Your choices matter substantially and the game will not pull punches when it comes to delivering the results. In fact, replaying the game once you have fully completed it is almost a must. There's a New Game Plus mode in which you can start over with the knowledge and perks you have gathered in your first run. I feel like this is a good time for me to mention those two aspects. I did say that you meet the game's cast and learn more about them. In my first playthrough I managed to get all the knowledge for 2 of the characters. This matters in several ways, one of which is directly tied to the game's ending. In addition to that, you also acquire perks such as the ability to pick locks, hack terminals, and more. These open additional paths in the story, many of which were effectively impossible to get during the first playthrough. With that being said, I have to address some of the game's weaknesses. First and foremost, for some reason the game's engine causes things in the distance to pop out of nowhere like mushrooms after rain. Just look at how the trees and rocks appear in the distance. It's weird and almost entertaining to look at, but definitely should not be behaving in this way. Secondly, the game's NPCs are reused a lot. You will speak to an NPC in one sequence, then continue your travels only to meet the same NPC again with a slightly different outfit, but it's now supposed to be a completely different person. Finally, my last complaint is related to the narrative. We are being told that there is this dictator and then there is another candidate who is, by the way, a woman, and then, as I said, we have the third option with the resistance movement. The thing is, the game tells us how the dictator is really bad, but they tell us absolutely nothing about the other candidate. It is implied that this secondary candidate is supposed to be the better option, but there is nothing to prove it. We never actually see anything about her, we don't see how she acts, what her politics are, and the game attempts to be very political. I would go as far as to say that in a way it tries to criticize and ridicule the real world, but I'm not gonna go into more of that because, you know, who cares? It's a game. I don't care about politics in games. The point is, however, if the game is going to give me different endings and I am made to choose which one to take, I should be presented with enough information so that I can make an educated choice and not just roll dice and decide on something and then get an ending and be like, alright, that's how it's gonna be. These are the only complaints I have. The game was a hidden gem and I am so happy that I decided to give it a chance. It currently costs under 20 bucks on both Steam and GOG.com. I would strongly recommend that you get it on GOG since it has no DRM there, and I am a strong supporter of DRM free games. You should own what you buy, period. Not a license, but the actual game. So my recommendation is that you definitely give this game a chance. It's a fun and relaxing adventure which respects your choices and provides a decent story, replayability value, and multiple endings at a very low price point. Thank you for watching Game Filter. I hope to see you on my next video. Until then, have a great day. This is Nino signing off.